Welcome to our Books Summary channel, Explore Books.
Today, we will get a summary of another new book.
Part 4. Mahatma in the midst of world turmoil. Gandhi was in England when World War I started, and he immediately began organizing a medical corps similar to the force he had led in the Boer War, but he also faced health problems that caused him to return to India, where he met the applauding crowds with enthusiasm once again. Indians continued to refer to him as Mahatma or Great Soul, an appellation reserved only for the holiest men of Hinduism. While Gandhi accepted the love and admiration of the crowds, he also insisted that all souls were equal and did not accept the implication of religious sacredness that his new name carried. In order to retreat into a life of humility and restraint, as his personal principles mandated, he decided to withdraw from public life for a while, spending his first year in India focusing on his personal quest for purity and healing. He also lived in a communal space with untouchables, a choice which many of his financial supporters resented, because they believed that the very presence of untouchables defiled higher caste Indians. Gandhi even considered moving to a district in Ahmedabad inhabited entirely by the untouchables when a generous Muslim merchant donated enough money to keep up his current living space for another year. By that time, Gandhi's communal life with the untouchables had become more acceptable. Although Gandhi had withdrawn from public life, he briefly met with the British Governor of Bombay, and future Viceroy of India, Lord Wellington, whom Gandhi promised to consult before he launched any political campaigns. Gandhi also felt the impact of another event, the passing of Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who had become his supporter and political mentor. He stayed away from the political trend of Indian nationalism, which many of the members of the Indian National Congress embraced. Instead, he stayed busy resettling his family and the inhabitants of the Phoenix settlement in South Africa, as well as the Tolstoy settlement he had founded near Johannesburg. For this purpose, on May 25, 1915, he created a new settlement, which came to be known as the Satyagrahashram, derived from Sanskrit word satya, which means truth, near the town of Ahmedabad and close to his place of birth in the western Indian province of Gujarat. All the inhabitants of the ashram, which included one family of untouchables, swore to poverty and chastity. After a while, Gandhi became influenced by the idea of Indian independence from the British, but he dreaded the possibility that a westernized Indian elite would replace the British colonial government. He developed a strong conviction that Indian independence should take place as a large-scale socio-political reform, which would remove the old plagues of extreme poverty and caste restrictions. In fact, he believed that Indians could not become worthy of self-government unless they all shared a concern for the poor. As Gandhi resumed his public life in India in 1916, he delivered a speech at the opening of the new Hindu university in the city of Benares, where he discussed his understanding of independence and reform. He also provided specific examples of the abhorrent living conditions of the lower classes that he had observed during his travels around India and focused specifically on sanitation. Although the Indians of the higher castes did not readily embrace the ideas in the speech, Gandhi had now returned to public life and he felt ready to convert these ideas into actions. Facing the possibility of arrest, just like he always did in South Africa, Gandhi first spoke for the rights of impoverished indigo cultivators in the Champaran district. His efforts eventually led to the appointment of a government commission to investigate abuses by the indigo planters. He also interfered whenever he saw violence. When a group of Ahmedabad mill workers went on strike and became violent, he resolved to fast until they returned to peace. Though some political commentators condemned Gandhi's behavior as a form of blackmail, the fast only lasted 3 days before the workers and their employers negotiated an agreement. Through this situation, Gandhi discovered the fast as one of his most effective weapons in his late years and set a precedent for later action as part of Satyagraha. In the meantime, the unrest in India increased exponentially with news of the British victories over the Ottoman Empire during the Middle Eastern theatre of the First World War. The prospect of the only major Muslim power in the world ceasing to exist was an unacceptable proposition to many Indian Muslims. After the end of the war, the British colonial government decided to follow the recommendations of the Rowlatt Committee, which advocated the retention of various wartime restrictions in India, including curfews and measures to suppress free speech. Gandhi was still sick when these events took place and, although he could not protest actively, he felt his loyalty to the British Empire weaken significantly. Later, when the Rowlatt Act actually became law, Gandhi proposed that the entire country observe a day of prayer, fasting, and abstention from physical labor as a peaceful protest against the injustice of the oppressive law. Gandhi's plea generated an overwhelming response as millions of Indians did not go to work on April 6, 1919. As the entire country stood still, the British colonial government arrested Gandhi, which provoked angry crowds to fill the streets of India's cities and, much to Gandhi's dislike, violence erupted everywhere. Gandhi could not tolerate violence, so he called off his campaign and asked that everyone return to their homes. He acted in accordance with his firm belief that if Satyagraha could not be carried out without violence, it should not take place at all. Unfortunately, not all protesters shared Gandhi's conviction as ardently. In Amritsar, the capital of the region known as the Punjab, where the alarmed colonial authorities had deported the local Hindu and Muslim members of the Congress, the street mobs became very violent and the colonial government summoned Brigadier General Reginald Dyer to restore order. Dyer prohibited all public meetings and instituted public whippings for Indians who confronted the police. A crowd of over 10,000 people gathered for religious purposes, and Dyer responded by bringing his troops there and opening fire without warning. Tightly packed together, the protesters had nowhere to run from the fire. Even when they threw themselves down on the ground, the fire was then directed on the ground, ceasing only when Dyer's troops ran out of ammunition. Hundreds died and many more were wounded. This unfortunate occurrence became known as the Jallianwala Bagh Massacre. It outraged the British public almost as much as Indian society. The authorities in London eventually condemned Dyer's conduct, forcing him to resign in disgrace. The effect the massacre had on Indian society became even more profound as more moderate politicians, like Gandhi, now began to wholeheartedly support the idea of Indian independence, creating an intense climate of mutual hostility. After the massacre, Gandhi eventually obtained permission to travel to Amritsar and conduct his own investigation. He produced a report months later, and his work on the report motivated him to contact a number of Indian politicians, who advocated for the idea of independence from British colonial rule. After the massacre, Gandhi attended the Muslim conference being held in Delhi, where Indian Muslims discussed their fears that the British government would abolish the Ottoman Caliphate. Indian Muslims considered the caliphs as heirs of Muhammad and spiritual heads of Islam, while the British government considered abolition a necessary effort to restore order after the First World War. The Muslim population of the British Empire viewed it as an unnecessary provocation. Gandhi urged them not to accept the actions of the British government. He proposed a boycott of British goods and stated that if the British government continued to insist on the abolition of the Caliphate, Indian Muslims should take even more drastic measures of non-cooperation, involving areas such as government employees and taxes. During the months that followed, Gandhi continued to advocate for peace and caution. However, since Britain and the Ottomans were still negotiating their peace terms, unlike more nationalistic politicians, he also supported the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms for India, as they laid the foundation for constitutional self-government. Eventually, Other politicians who thought the reforms did not go far enough had to agree with Gandhi simply because his popularity and influence had become so great that Congress could accomplish little without him. While the British government remained determined to abolish the Ottoman Caliphate, they also continued to enforce the Rowlatt Act resolutely. Even Gandhi became less tolerant towards British colonial policies, and in April 1920, he urged all Indians, Muslim, and Hindu, to begin a non-cooperation protest against British policies by giving up their Western clothing and jobs in the colonial government. As a personal example, on August 1, he returned the Kazari Hind Medal that he had received for providing medical service to wounded British soldiers during the Second Boer War. He also became the first president of the Home Rule League, a largely symbolic position that confirmed his position as an advocate for Indian independence. In September 1920, Gandhi also passed an official constitution for the Congress, which created a system of 2 national committees and numerous local units, all working to mobilize a spirit of non-cooperation across India. Gandhi and other volunteers traveled around India, further establishing this new grassroots organization, which achieved great success. The new Governor-General of India, Lord Reading, did not dare to interfere because of Gandhi's immense popularity. By 1922, Gandhi decided that the initiative of non-cooperation had to transform into open civil disobedience, but in March 1922, Lord Reading finally ordered Gandhi's arrest after a crowd in the city of Chauri Chaura attacked and assassinated the local representatives of the British colonial government. Gandhi, who had never encouraged or sanctioned this type of conduct, condemned the actions of the violent crowds and retreated into a period of fasting and prayer as a response to this violent outburst. However, the colonial government saw the event as a trigger point and a reason for his arrest.
Thank you for visiting our channel, Explore Books. We hope you found the summary informative and helpful. Please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more updates. Happy reading!